Hi, good morning. Today I'm going to take you through one of my signature dish. I would say signature because I really enjoy cooking this dish, so possibly. And just to be clear, I'm not a trained chef. This is a hobby, and this is a kind of a continuation of that hobby. So today I'm going to make, tomorrow actually I'm going to marinate, I'm going to make mutton. And as I said, all my cooking, there's a twist in the tail. So I'm going to tell you the tail first, and twist comes while cooking. So here I've got mutton, which I'm going to marinate. I'm going to marinate it today. I keep it for 24 to 36 hours of marination in the fridge, before which I will cook. Now here's the tail. Let me tell you the difference that I have had a challenge all along, especially outside of the, when you come to any Western countries, the difference between mutton and lamb. Firstly, these are two different animals. Mutton is a goat meat, which is typically in Southeast Asia or in kind of Northwest Asia, which is Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan. Lamb is sheep meat. Now the confusion sometimes happens in the Western world is mutton is referred to as an old sheep meat, a rough meat, and lamb is soft or a kind of a young sheep meat. That's wrong. Mutton and lamb are two different animals, and mutton is what I'm going to cook. I'm going to show you cooking today. I'm in my balcony, and I want to take the opportunity to take you through Hong Kong. From my house, if you can just look around from the balcony here, that's Hong Kong. Where I am is the Kowloon Peak, and exactly opposite me on the other side is the Hong Kong Peak. In between is the Hong Kong Harbour, which is the Victoria Harbour, and you can see the whole bird's eye view of Hong Kong from here. It's a beautiful day, and I wanted to marinate it outdoor. So let me now, coming back to the marination process, I'm going to take you through the marination now. So I'm going to show you how to marinate. How am I going to marinate the mutton? So let's go into my kitchen. Now that I have clarified the difference between mutton and lamb, let's now go to the marination process, which I'll be marinating, as I said, for about 36 hours. Right. So here I've got the ingredients or the spices for marination. This is, well, let me put it here, it'll be helpful for Julie to show. So I've got here, which is basically coriander seeds, cumin seeds, and dried red chili. And I have here, you got cloves, you got cardamom, starseed, and cinnamon sticks. Why have I separated these two is because I'm going to dry roast these, and these I will not roast, and I'll grind them together later. Now this is not something I have read, but I have seen that if you roast these, then there's a little bit of a funny smell that comes out. So therefore, just from experience, I have decided that I will not dry roast this, but I will only dry roast this and put them together grind. So the dry roast is simple. I'll switch on the fire, and I'll just pour all of this into a dry pan, preferably non-stick, for about a minute to 2 minutes. Once it starts to smell, and there'll be a nice smell come out of it, and at that point in time I will switch it off, let it cool, and then grind everything together. Yeah. So I have now dry roasted these and cooled down, so I'm going to now grind it into spices. So I'm going to put this into my dry grinder, and the unroasted spices, so we'll put them down as well, and I am now going to grind it. Just make it into a dry grind, into a powder. So put it in, and that's done. So I've got my spices, and now I'm going to marinate. Let's take the next step. Yep. All right, now we're going to do the marination process. Now let me explain why I'm wearing the gloves first, because I'm going to use my hand to kind of mix the stuff, and I don't like the after smell and the color that happens into your hand. So I prefer using a glove, and it's also hygienic, right? So let's do the marinating process. So here I have is mutton, which I showed you up front. I've got my dry grind spices that I showed. I've got minced garlic, Minced garlic does the purpose of not just flavor, but I add a lot of garlic with mutton because it helps softening and melting the mutton. And I've got degi mirch, which is basically called Kashmiri powder, Kashmiri chili powder. And I've got turmeric, and I've got mustard oil, right? So let's marinate. The first thing, I'm gonna put the mustard oil. Again, I'm not a chef, so I don't measure things. It's all based on what I think is the right ingredient, right? So I'm going to mix the oil first into the mutton. With that done, now one thing I do, because I'm going to marinate this mutton for over 36 hours, I wouldn't add salt now. Because if you add, what I have seen again from experience, if you add salt, if you're marinating for so long, the mutton becomes a little rough because it's already rough meat, remember. Then I'm going to add the dry spices which I just created, all of it. Again, I don't measure, just gut as to how much I want to put in. So I'm going to do this again, mix it up. I'm going to put the second round and finish up all the spices in it. That's done. So this is roughly about 7 spices. 5 of them not being dry roasted, 3 of them being roasted, which is basically the coriander seeds, the cumin seeds, and the dry red chili. So that's done. And now I'm going to put turmeric powder. I like turmeric powder, as now it's proven that it's not just helps in in kind of cooking in the color, but it also is very healthy because it's been proven now that it helps in Alzheimer's or against Alzheimer's. So I'm going to put some turmeric, mix it up again, make sure that it's kind of well distributed, right? Maybe a little bit more will help. So again, I'm not a chef, so I don't like put 2 spoons of that, 1 spoon of this is not what I generally do. So it's all kind of look and feel, and then you decide, right? So, and remember, it's a hobby, so it's not kind of a trained chef showing you stuff. So this is done, and then I'm going to add the Kashmiri chili powder, which is called degi mirch. And I've not, the thing about this is it's not very spicy, but it gives a nice color. I mean, I wouldn't say spicy, it's not hot, but it gives a nice color. Again, kind of a difference between the West and in typical Asian cuisine. When we say spicy, there's a difference between spicy and hot. So this is spicy, which has different kind of flavor, but hot is when you add the chili. So that makes it hot, right? So let's be clear about that between spicy food and hot food. So that's kind of done, and the final ingredient is going to be a large amount of garlic. It not only is going to add the flavor, it's going to be helping in kind of softening the mutton meat. So I'm going to mix it up well. It's very important that try and make sure that the thing is evenly distributed. So I'm going to add a little bit more minced garlic. It's never less. It's never more or less. It's always as much as you feel is the right ingredient, and you get a sense of it. So this is more or less now well marinated mutton, and I'm doing it in my balcony just to get a feel of a nice Hong Kong weather outside. So there it is. The mutton has been marinated. I'm going to cover it up, and it goes into the fridge for 36 hours. But what I'm going to do is, like in the morning, when I wake up in the morning or in the evening, Julie, we're going to just stir this every morning, every evening, because if you just keep it like this in the fridge, it doesn't again, get properly marinated. So that's marination done, and the next step is cooking, which I'm going to do tomorrow, and we're going to take you through that. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm back here. This is the mutton that's been marinated for about 28 hours. It's smelling beautiful. I've got here a thick bottom La Creuset pot in which I'm going to do the cooking. Now, the simplicity is that I'm going to add only 3 things into the mutton. This is mashed or ground onion, red onion, 2 of those. This is mint grinded, and then this is a tomato which I have power boiled and de-skinned, which I'm going to mash to add it later. Now the cooking I will do in 3 steps. So because I don't cook in pressure cooker, I want to cook in this because it's something I enjoy. It's going to be about a 45-minute process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and go because the 3 stages of cooking this. First is stir frying the mutton to the extent it oozes water. I cook in that water. Then I'll add these 2 ingredients, and then I will simmer it for about another 45 minutes. So I'm going to give clippets of where I'm adding what. So starting now, I light the fire. The pot goes in, and I'll add mustard oil. And to the mustard oil, I will add a tablespoon of ghee. Remember, as I keep telling and emphasizing, ghee is not unhealthy. With a tablespoon a day, as long as you're exercising and continuing with proper diet. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of ghee that adds to the flavor. Now, I'm going to stir the oil so that it gets well, and I'm going to just put it there and let it heat. Okay, the oil is well heated, so to that I'm going to add the ground onion, which was 2 red onion. I will let the onion to saute till it's kind of brownish and it's going to ooze a little bit of water as usual. So I'm going to fry this till the water dries out and the onion is red. Well, now I think the onion is turned its natural translucent color. The water has dried up. Completely, the onion water. So now it's time to put the mutton in there. Right, so I've got the mutton. Put the whole mutton in there. And I'm going to stir this side. Now remember, what I have learned from seeing other people, the longer you fry the mutton till it starts to ooze water, and that water dries before you simmer it, is where the taste comes from. And the word in Hindi is bhuno. Bhuno the mutton is what typically you get to hear. So which is basically frying till it starts to ooze the water. So, and it's the pleasure of cooking, because you can do this thing within a pressure cooker in 8 to 9 whistles, but that's like to eat and not to enjoy the cooking. So this is when I'm going to do this for about 30-35 minutes till it oozes water before I add the ingredients, which I'll take you in steps. So let me just fry this till it starts to boil water. As I said, this mutton is now been frying for about 10 minutes, and you can see it's oozing the water. That is the water that has to dry before you actually simmer it, which is when that's the water the mutton has retained, which is coming out where the spices are, which is now kind of mixing very well with the mutton. And that, when that dries, and then you simmer it, adding a little bit of hot water to make the final curry, is when you get the taste. So that's, you see very clearly the water coming out, and it's boiling in its own juice, so to say. Okay, now you can see very clearly the juice. I have not added any water. This is the juice of the meat in which it's cooking, and this is the time when I'm going to add the twist to my cooking. So here I have, we saw the tomato at the start. That tomato now has been pureed, so I'm going to add this juice. What it does, it gives a little bit of tanginess and a color to the mutton, And the twist that I add to this is this, which is mashed or grinded mint leaf. It gives a minty flavor, a very nice minty flavor to the mutton. Again, I've just kind of figured this out, you know, putting dhania, putting mint or coriander. And finally I thought that mint gives the perfect flavor and coloring once it starts to cook. So it's kind of a reddish greenish color, not to mention the flavor that comes. So I'm going to continue to cook this till this water, which is, you see, which is its own juice coming out, starts to dry up a little bit. And then I'm going to add hot water a little bit to kind of make the curry liquid form, and I'm going to simmer that. I'm going to add a little bit more of this coriander. Nothing stops me from adding of mint. I get confused between coriander and mint. So Julie just corrected me. So we go more of this. Nothing wrong in adding more. Adds more flavor. But it is extremely important, and that's where the difference is, that you do not simmer now by adding water, because that juice of its own has to be dried a little bit, yeah? So we're going to continue cooking, and I'm going to come back at various stages to take you through this dish, which takes about 45 minutes to an hour. That I prefer cooking it, right? Okay, one thing I did mention, that I have been adding salt through the process, right? So salt, again, I keep tasting and adding. I don't say that many spoons, that many. So I'm kind of, as it cooks, I add salt at various stages, because remember, the water comes out and then you have to keep tasting that water, because that's where the salt taste happens. It is in the juice, not in the meat, right? So I've been adding salt as we go, and that's what you can do as well. There's no definitive point in time when you add it, but the best time to add the salt is when it has juiced out, because then you know exact quantity that you need to put in, because that juice that has come out, which forms the curry later, is what contains the salt. So that's when I do my salt test. Okay, as you can see now, the water has dried out, and I've been doing this now for about 35 minutes. You know, it takes, I enjoy this process. It just, the juice that had, it's cooked on its own juice, and it's ready to be simmered, okay? When I say simmer, you kind of cook it for boil it for another 45 minutes, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So I've got hot water here, which has been preheated. So I'm going to add the hot water. Remember, the thing is, you have to be careful of how much water you add, because la crusade, you have to remember, especially with la crusade, when you cook, it doesn't lose the water, unlike normal utensils. So you have to be very careful how much water you put, and to make not a very light curry, you don't want that. So a little bit of a thickish curry, and also water enough for the mutton to be well done. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. So that's about it. I'm going to let the water is already heated. There's one rule my mother taught me. If you're cooking rice, it's cold water. For everything else, it's hot water. Because if you add cold water to this, it'll spoil the flavor. Because the cold water has to take its own time to come to the same boil power as the. So I'm going to now do my final salt test. So I'm going to take the juice. Perfect. The salt is perfect. Now there's one trick I have to do. Add a little bit more water. Because it's thick bottom, and I'm going to simmer it, I'm going to move this pan away to here. And if you're cooking in thick bottom pans, it's always helpful to do this. This is the contraption you get. What it does, it evenly distributes the heat. So I'm going to put it back on high flame. I'm going to put this back, let the water come to a boil. And I have put my timer here to 40 minutes, the simmering time. Now, once this water comes to a boil, which it is, I think I'll add a little bit more water. There's nothing right quantity, wrong quantity. I said I'm not the chef. I just go by the gut and the look and feel of it. So that's perfect. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover it up and set the timer for 40 minutes. And I'm going to make sure the pot is right in center. Otherwise the heat distribution is not equal, as we all know. So it's right there in the center. 4 timers set. Flame goes low to medium and it'll simmer for exactly 40 minutes. Mutton's done. Enjoy the cooking, and I'll come back to show you when the mutton is done. All right, the mutton is now done. It's been simmering for 45 minutes. So I've waited for about 10 minutes to open this. So this is the mutton curry cooked. And you can see I'm going to stir it a little bit. And that's mutton curry completely ready to be eaten. So I'm going to cover it back again and keep it, because as you see the La Cruzette, the benefit of it is it retains the water, retains the heat, and it's ready to be eaten. That's your mutton curry. Hope you guys like it and try and make it yourself, because that's what I did, and have a good day.